Hello YouTube, my name is Philip. I'm with my brother Andrew again, and we are going to talk about maintenance for owning real estate, renting real estate, doing property management. We're going to talk about why it is so important.
Yeah, maintenance is essential. It's one of those things that is sort of boring to think about ahead of time before you're buying property, but then it's also sort of frightening and scary. Like, oh, maintenance is coming, I don't know what to
Everybody's
do.
afraid of
They're
that
all yelling at me.
toilet at 2
Water
a.m.
is shooting out in different directions. But maintenance, I think the way to think of maintenance is customer service. When you buy when somebody's renting a property, you go through the process. They go through the process. Let's say, particularly if they love it. They love this house, this apartment unit. Oh, I want to rent from you guys. It's so great. They sign the lease. Everything is good. They're in love with you. And then after that, other than like lease renewals, or if you're doing some weird little tenant appreciation thing,
Like one time a month.
the only one time you really deal with them, and that is when you are a giant succubus taking their money. Or at least that's how it feels. And then if they fall behind and they got delinquency issues or whatever, it gets even worse. And so your only real chance to make a statement to them, to make your case for why they should renew their lease with you and why you are a good property management company, you're a good property owner, is maintenance. That's your chance to make your case. And lease renewals and reducing turnover is the number one best way you can to reduce expenses. You can't do a lot with property taxes, insurance. I mean, you can bid insurance. There's some things, but the real thing is keeping your residents in the property longer. And sometimes they're going to go buy a house or whatever. You can't stop it. But if they are upset with your maintenance, they're going to move on. And so the best thing you can do to keep residents in your places is quality maintenance.
It's the number one reason why we always hear of people leaving properties and wanting to rent from us. It's because their last landlord or whoever wasn't doing maintenance properly, and so that's why they wanted to move.
It's the thing you can control to increase.
Can't really control
retention.
job transfers very well, or family emergencies or things like that, but maintenance is something that is in your hands, and if you do really good, you might even incentivize someone to stay with you longer than
anticipated originally.
The other thing about maintenance you really got to know when getting into property management is it's something you have to expect. A lot of people get into it and they think you have to have a plan for it, and they just don't have the plan before it happens. If you own rental real estate, toilets are going to break, hot water heaters are going to go out. You have to know how to handle these things before they happen and have a plan.
Everything in the house is like records. They're meant to be broken.
Now, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and
I think the first one is if you're going to do the work yourself, that's your plan. And we have a friend who lives up in New York, who owns some rental properties, and his whole thing is managing and doing the maintenance and rehab for him. That's his job, basically. That's fine. Now, the one thing you need to understand if you're going to be doing the maintenance yourself, one is that there might be some odd hour calls. But the second thing is that you can't do everything. No one is a great HVAC technine, plumber, electrician, roofer, etc. all at the same time.
You're also not going to have all the equipment.
Yeah, you're not going to have all the equipment. So you need to find those people, those vendors, those contractors who can do it. The most important thing would be with regards to emergencies. And with emergencies, one, I would say you need to have a bit of a thick skin. That's general for property management all the time. You need to be able to say no, because it's really the major things with emergencies are water related, or if they don't have a toilet. But if there's water,
people have gotten used to having indoor plumbing, so they kind of want that at all times.
There's water, a major leak or sewage backup. That's when that's most of them. Even if it's their furnace is out, generally. Like the way we like to think of it is if you can't get somebody out there today, then, or if a homeowner
basically have the same expectations for us as your property manager as a normal homeowner were. If there's 2 feet of snow on the ground and something goes on, we'll try our best to make it out there. But a normal homeowner can't call someone at 2 a.m. with 2 feet of snow on the ground and expect someone to show up in an hour. So
you need to be like, we can get to that tomorrow and stuff like that. But you have to. And the big thing, the nice part is, for sewage related issues, for plumbing related issues, you can always call Snake and Rooter or Roto-Rooter. They're very expensive, but they're always there. Better to find another contractor who can do this stuff for you on an emergency basis at midnight, but you always have that backup one. Yeah. You can also hire a maintenance company. There are companies out there that simply do maintenance for people who are managing their own properties. They're going to be more expensive, for sure, but that is a useful alternative and something to look into, especially if you want to manage your own properties, but you're not particularly handy or don't have the time to do so. Now, if you're going to be building your own property management company, as we've done, you're going to need to hire employees. Now, this is always a tricky process, and we're going to definitely do a video on that in the future. To be
always
TBA.
smooth sailing.
TBA, yeah. The first thing, have a sit-down interview with them. This can only go so far, though, because their work is in the field. It's not around a table. But we have a quiz that we like to have them fill out with just basic maintenance questions. It's a good
just to see if they know what they're talking
about. If they say they can do anything, that almost always means they can do nothing. That's a general tip. And then check references. I mean, if they've done maintenance work for other property management companies, well, that's a really good sign. If you have a maintenance tech on staff that is doing that, you really
or
happy
even a
with,
trusted vendor,
or a trusted contractor vendor, yeah. Have them go around with that person for a week or two and get their feedback. And if they're happy with them, that's great. If they're not, it ain't going to get any better. Just let them go cut the cord real quickly. If you're getting a lot of callbacks, if you're getting a lot of complaints, it's not going to get better. Move on. The last one would be hiring a property management company, a third-party property management company. This makes it a little bit easier, but you need to manage the manager. You need to make sure they're not spending too much. You need to check the reports, make sure they're not getting a lot of complaints, and put some pressure on them. Be a bit of a pest. We've done a previous video on that, link in the description, and so you can check that out as well. So those are really the options, but as Philip noted, you need to have a game plan when you go into this. Maintenance is going to happen. Your house is made of a bunch of things that break, and they will break. It's just a matter of time. And so you need to have a game plan going into this. Whichever one of those be, it might shift from one thing to another, but you need to know your plan and find contractors that can do the work that you can't. If you're going to be managing yourself, make sure you find contractors.
Well,
that can do the
and
work
there's this website on the interwebs called YouTube.com. Not sure if you've heard of it before, but that can be your best friend with this stuff. I'm not very maintenance inclined, but if I have a question, I can figure out things on YouTube. If I have a vendor who I want to check off to see if they know what they're talking about, I can reference YouTube.
We presume you're watching this on the Daily Motion, right? That's right.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyways,
so, Google videos. Is that still around?
That's YouTube.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
So we made up this brilliant acronym. We're a big fan of brilliant acronyms for what makes for good maintenance, and it is Quality PECS. As you can notice, we're both basically bodybuilders.
I like to think of it as instead of copper, you use PECS, but it's spelled differently. But whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, Quality PECS: quality, professionalism, expectations, communication, speed. Those are the key things. That if you can master those things, you're going to have a very, very high quality maintenance, and that's going to lead to tenant retention and less turnover, which will lead to more profits, which is good.
And honestly, less expensive too. And now, quality, that word can mean a lot of different things. People are going to ask you to build them a brand new house sometimes. People are going to want the nicest things, but you can't afford to do that correctly. So you kind of have to have a way to, one, know your rule for yourself, know how to communicate that to anybody who's doing the work for you and what you want. I have a rule that I give most of our maintenance team and a lot of our vendors is a 20-year rule. We're planning on owning these things for 20 years. I plan on doing a quality job that will be the most effective fix over the next 20 years.
I mean, unless you're doing luxury rentals, you're not going to be putting in Brazilian hardwoods, you're not going to be putting in granite countertops, you're not going to be putting those stainless steel refrigerators with the French doors and whatnot. But at the same time, you don't want to be using builder's grade carpet. You don't, that's going to last one turn. You don't want to be using flat paint. If you ever see flat paint, just take a crown. Well, don't do this because in market you can't get that off for the life of you. Yeah. I don't even know how it's possible that flat paint just retains every stain to an infinite degree. But so you want to use quality materials, but you don't want to make it fancy. It depends on the quality of, whether you're renting to working class, middle class, or luxury rentals. Obviously, this is not really related to the luxury rentals too much. But generally, you want to be quality materials with quality contractors, but not fancy stuff.
And fix it correctly, because if you don't fix it correctly, you're going to have to go back in 6 months to fix it anyways. They're not going to be happy. That's going to be worse customer service. It's going to cost you more money. It's just not the way to do things. So don't try to save your money up front. Try to save it over 20 years. If you can, you don't have to get a brand new roof because of one small leak. You could patch the roof for $200 instead of a new roof. That's a better fix over the next 20 years than just getting a new roof that's going to last you 20 years.
Yeah, you're just always thinking in terms of like the Goldilocks zone. You want to be cost conscious. You're not building a new house, but at the same time, it needs to be an effective fix. And I think that's the word I would think for quality maintenance. Yeah. Effective. It needs to be something functional that the resident will be satisfied with.
Now, professionalism, this is kind of true with all customer service. You want to come off well. You want to look professional. You act professional. This means Don't have a maintenance person in someone's house who is swearing or, wearing grimy, terrible clothing. We have everybody who works for us.
Or if you're doing the maintenance yourself, don't
Correct.
do that.
Yes,
yourself.
that is true too. Yeah, present yourself well. First of all, people are going to trust that the work is being done well. They're going to appreciate someone was presentable and nice to them. That's something that's always going to be good. But you want them, we have everybody who works for us, they drive a vehicle that has our logo on it and has a shirt with our logo on it. The reason we do this is because it's really uncomfortable. Think of it from the tenant's perspective. This is the most intimate situation that they deal with any company. They're in their home. And just have some random person, you don't know who they are, you don't know who they're affiliated with, coming into your home, violating your space in a way that's really uncomfortable. Knowing that you're acting professional, that you know that this person is associated with a company, is just a weight off their shoulders.
And being
empathetic
better. To their, this is uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Don't just bark orders like, kennel your dog and blah blah blah. Just be empathetic in those regards. We need to do this in order to be able to get the job done, and explain why you're doing that. And I think you really want to, if you have a company, shirts aren't that expensive with your logo. Decals for cars aren't that expensive. It's something to consider, even if you're doing it yourself. I think professional, letterhead on any communications you send, any letters you send them regarding maintenance. These are all good things to let them know that you mean business, you're serious, and you're professional.
And you're going to treat them right, and that they can. It's just such an intimate situation that the better you come across, clean up everything that you make a mess, do a good job with it, treat them like this is their home because it is their home.
And take complaints seriously.
Yeah.
If they complain about it, follow through. And if you're getting a lot of complaints from a particular maintenance technician or contractor, stop using them. But that doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean that they're correct when they complain, or that there's anything you can necessarily do. But sometimes mistakes are made. But make sure you take it seriously and you follow up and you let them know what you did. Don't just ignore it.
Now the E is expectations, and I would say this is the one that the least amount of property managers and people who rent real estate get correct. I don't think it's the one that people fail the most at, but the least amount of people get this right, of creating proper expectations with your residents, because you don't talk about things breaking when they move in. You don't talk about how you're supposed to submit a work order. You don't talk about what the expectations are once something breaks when they're moving in.
This is simple. If you've done a new rehab on a project, there will almost always be a lot of things that break because they haven't been under a load. Like if this property has been vacant for a year, you turn on the water, it works, but it hasn't been used consistently. It's probably not going to be during the rehab. Those projects always have a lot of maintenance concerns, so it's really important to tell the resident, hey, this is a new rehab. There could be some maintenance concerns. We'll get out there and fix them. Let them know that ahead.
Also, someone's gonna if they don't have expectations, they're gonna make them in their head. If they think they have a work order, they're gonna call you right away and expect you to be there in 20 minutes to fix the problem and have you over. But what you have to do is create the expectation. When they like you, when they're signing that lease, create the expectation of exactly what to do. Okay, if you call us, this is actually our process. We don't do anything if they call us. We tell them you have to put it in writing.
That's good.
That's really good advice, first of all, for a lot of reasons.
To prevent miscommunications.
And also, in some situations, to follow the law, technically. Because the way we do it, we don't schedule appointments. We actually think that's a very good way to do it, because you're going to have a lot of missed appointments, spend a lot of extra time and money if you're trying to do it that way. So we don't make any appointments, but we have to, by doing that, we have to create really clear expectations. Submit a work order in writing to us. You have to give us permission to enter in writing on the work order, and then within 72 business hours, we will be out there to fix the issue. I think we're at a 99.9% rate on that. At least when we first show up, we're going to be there within the first. It's usually in one day, but we give them 72 hours. And we make that expectation very clear, so when they get frustrated with us, we just go right back to that expectation. And people
we have an hour lease signing. And so we go over each of these points in detail, and it's in the lease, and so they know it. Like, we can point to the lease and remember when we told you this. But remember, unfulfilled expectations or unstated expectations are just premeditated resentments, and this is going to build. So you want to get all of those expectations on the table. You want to get it in writing to prevent miscommunications, and also, refresh their memory on what those expectations are. And you just this is something that is very important. And also, if something goes sideways and you were to get sued or something, you've got all this documentation along the way too.
Especially with permission to enter. Most states you can't legally enter without written permission.
Yeah, and I would make sure to check your state laws on what you can do, like with regards to them giving you permission to enter. That's definitely worth doing. But I would definitely recommend that you do not do it by appointment. There's going to be a lot of wasted time, every resident's going to want it in the morning, at lunch, or after work,
Now
or on the weekends, and so that makes it very difficult.
Yeah,
So
it can cause some problems to not schedule things out, but it's the best way to be effective in what you're trying to do, which is what we talked about trying to do. I mean, like you said, when they don't have expectations, they're going to fill them in themselves, and from their point of view, okay, their garbage disposal doesn't work. To you, you have a bunch of other things going on, a bunch of properties, but it's like this to them. This is the only thing that matters. So why aren't you here now fixing it? So
why
you have to
aren't
create
you
those
serving your customer?
Yeah, exactly. Because they're the only one that matters to them. They don't care about your other residents or what else you got going on. But anyways, next, communication. This is very critical too. Part of this goes with expectations in the sense you have to create the expectations of how to communicate. But if something goes wrong, you've got to communicate with the residents. You got to keep them updated with what's going on. If you're ordering an appliance part or something that's going to take time, you have to communicate that properly to them.
People are not computers. People are weird. People like a computer or an algorithm or whatever would just get like, is the job done or is it not? People aren't like that. They want to know that you have them in your thoughts, that you care about them, that you have not forgotten them, that you actually are going to do what you say eventually, And so I would say like a management company that does things, let's say in 48 hours, generally, will actually will be considered worse in their in their maintenance by the average resident than one who does it in 72 hours if the latter communicates and the former doesn't. And that is, so if something goes sideways, you always call them like hey, we just got inundated with maintenance requests. We weren't able to get out in 72 hours. We apologize. We're going to be out tomorrow.
Which, if you do that, definitely send a notice that you're extending the time you're going to enter the property. But
I mean, you've done things where you've called the resident and been like, listen, I don't know if I have an update, like say a part is coming in or something like that, but I'm going to call you tomorrow and let you know regardless.
Yeah, basically the update is I have no update, but I'm going to call you to let you know where things are. You are not forgotten. Things may have gone sideways in the situation, but I'm going to keep you updated on what's going on. Even if the update is just tell you I don't have an update, but I'm still working on what's going on and I still care.
There's a study I think is regarding doctors getting sued that I think is important to relate to this. It basically said that when you controlled for the number of issues, everything else, just the amount of time that a doctor spent with their patient meant it was heavily correlated to how often they were sued. So if they didn't spend much time with them, they were sued more, no matter what the outcome was. And I think a lot of it is just because in cases where the doctor's like kind of okay, whatever, in and out, boom, it's like they don't care. And so whereas one who spends a lot of time, maybe they made a mistake, but they care, and that matters.
Now, there's one other really important place to communicate is when things go correctly, you need to communicate as well. Everybody who does maintenance on our properties, whenever they leave the property, they leave a door hanger explaining exactly what they did, exactly what the problem was, and that they fixed the issue. And then we let them know that their work order was completed and nobody's coming back to the property. We do this because sometimes they think, oh, this got fixed, but this other thing hasn't been addressed yet. So they assume someone else is coming back out, but we don't have anything in our system, so nothing happens. So you have to communicate when it goes well as well, which is a weird way to say that, but you have to communicate in both situations and make sure that they know.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, what if the issue is with No.
So anyway,
yeah, and I'd also lastly communicate with yourself too. Take before and after pictures. That way you can judge from afar as a property manager whether the work was being done. So we always make sure that our maintenance technicians take a picture before the problem and after it, and then we file those away. And you can do that much easier now with property management software.
One thing actually to be very careful with when it comes to communication is the resident is always going to hear what they want to hear. If you tell someone it's going to be a week before an appliance part comes in, they're going to say, okay, it's coming in 2 days in their mind. That's what always happens. So be very clear with your communication, very precise, and never do best case scenario. Always do worst case scenario, or don't give an actual timeline is usually the number one way to go. Don't give them a timeline. Tell them what you're going to do, whether it's talk to them tomorrow and do that thing is what you need to do. The last one here is speed, and this is the one I think where you can really set yourself apart. Like I said, we do all of our work orders within 72 hours. But really, talking to my team, they get to basically every work order that comes in from 8 o'clock in the morning till 2 or 3, they usually get to same day, and all the other ones they usually get to next day. Not 100%, but pretty close to that. And when someone has a problem, again, that's the only thing on their mind. It's not working right. Why aren't you fixing my problem? They don't care about the other resident or your business in general. They care about their problem.
Now, there is something, you want to get out there as quickly as possible. Remember, there is something with expectations here. Some maintenance orders require that you order a part, and it takes a while to get there. Some of them require a contractor or vendor that can't get there immediately, perhaps.
Correct.
Some of them require 2 trips. Like if you have a hole in the wall, you need to patch the hole and mud it, and then you got to let it dry and come back and paint it. So there are issues that take more than one day. The goal is to get out there at least by the first time in 72 hours, but that might not be the time that finally fixes it.
Especially if it's a significant
And so it's
issue.
important to make sure you want to do both as quickly as possible. It's important to go back to that expectations point and make sure that they know that just because you're out there doesn't mean necessarily the entire thing is going to be fixed. There could be other issues in there.
But it is the part where I feel like you can set yourself apart. Property, it's like being done eventually isn't really good enough. They want to have it done now. And so, yeah, you have to find an intermediate between that. And you have to run an effective business. Yeah. You can't drop everything to be out there at midnight or first thing in the morning. You have to be effective with how you do things.
It is a balancing act. You need to find that Goldilocks zone. But a lot of property managers and owners aren't even close. Their porridge is just, I mean, it's not even edible. So it's like...
it's too hot and too cold at the same time. So like a Hot Pocket. But anyways, so speed, it's the best way to do really exceptional customer service if you hit that really well.
But I mean, all these things are just the things to aim for, the ways to do it, and the things to aim for. Quality PECS, that is what you want to master.
There's one other thing to aim for. Do you know what that is? It's a little red rectangle on your computer that you can put your mouse and click the button. If you're on a phone, I believe if you turn it the right way, you can press a button that will subscribe as well. And I think that is what you should do.
I would agree with that.
Because we are telling you about Quality PECS. And that is a very important thing to know about. Also, there's a thumbs up button.
Yeah, please
a quality
like,
thumbs
subscribe,
up button.
share. We'd very much appreciate it.
Yes, thank you
Otherwise, next time, thank you guys.